I thought to myself, actually, if all else fails, I just go and get another job.
Yeah.
It's not actually a big deal break. And I have now worked with over 17,000 people. But there were
Wow.
certainly days where I got up and I just thought, I don't know if I really want to do this, or I can't be bothered.
Hmm.
And I think it was the fact that I still make a difference to people's lives that kept me going.
Thank you very much, Helen, for coming for this podcast. Can you tell us a little bit more about yourself, about what is it you do actually?
Okay. So I'm a well-being and resilience life coach. That's what it says on my business card. And so I do coaching, one-to-one coaching. I run training and I'm a speaker as well. My focus is on mental health, or should I say mental wealth, because we all have mental health. But this is about really helping people to flourish and be the best version of themselves. All too often, I end up working with people who are in quite a bad place. So they could be struggling mentally or emotionally. So that's kind of what I do: coaching, training, and speaking.
Mm-hmm. Okay. Thank you very much for sharing. And can I ask you, why have you started doing this coaching and helping people with their emotional and mental health or wealth, as you say?
Great. It's a great question. So, in my previous place of employment, um, so in 2008, when all the austerity measures kicked in, and the organization found every year they started to make cutbacks. So that involved all sorts, but we all know that the biggest sort of outgoing for any business is usually the pay, the salary bill. So
Mm-hmm.
every year we started to see more and more people being made redundant. Now, we
Mm-hmm.
had quite a forward-thinking chief executive, and he decided to form an in-house coaching service, because every year people spent 6 months of the year thinking, oh, I've survived that round of job cuts. And then they'd sort of breathe a sigh of relief for 6 months. And then 6 months later, they'd be thinking, oh, is it going to be my turn next? So there was
Mm-hmm.
that horrible emotional roller coaster people were going on. Not only that, they were seeing friends and colleagues being made redundant, and it was affecting their self-esteem, their self-belief, productivity. They weren't happy being at work, but they were coming because they needed to pay their own bills.
Mm-hmm.
So what, as I say, we decided to form an in-house coaching service. And I was very, very fortunate. I got trained as a NLP master coach, and I was the
Mm-hmm.
only one. And what our HR staff sort of said to me was, actually, because we've only got one of you, what is it that you can do that would be different? And I started to realize there was a particular technique I had trained in, which so it gets rid or reduces anger, sadness, fear, hurt, and guilt. And
Mm-hmm.
when you think about it, depression sits under sadness, and anxiety is a fear-driven emotion. So I just sort of said, let's, if we've got people who've been booked off by the doctor and who are off work with anxiety, depression, any of those things, let's see if this will help them. And sure enough, we had staff who were off 3-4 months, who were then coming back into work within a matter of weeks of having 2 or 3 sessions with them. So
Mm-hmm.
I started to get really curious about where this could go. And even while I was working, I donated 1 day a month to a local charity known as the North Staffordshire Veterans,
Mm-hmm.
and wanted to see if I could make a difference with ex-military serving personnel. And some of them took me up on the offer to work with them. And after a period of time, I ended up with one of the senior psychiatric consultants from our local hospital ringing me up and saying, I don't know if you're aware of this, but you're actually getting rid of PTSD.
Wow.
So that it was at that point that I sort of thought, I can make a real big difference. I was working at at this company as a manager, and coaching was just something I did as part of that role. But that was the big turning point for me in terms of, why don't I just do this full time and really have a positive impact with people?
Okay, amazing. So can I ask you, because now you were working there as a manager, you've been trained as a NLP master coach, which I'll get back to it because not many people know what it is. But can you tell me, how did you transition from being a manager and starting on your own business, if this is what you do right now? You are helping people on your own.
Well, interestingly, I think it was probably after that phone call. And I've been doing this work for about 3 years, this coaching work within this company. But that phone call was a bit of a kind of a light bulb moment in terms of, I'm managing a big service, I'm writing reports, and yet the coaching side of things was what I really enjoyed doing. So I put my name forward to be made redundant, and I can remember my husband saying to me, I was setting up my business at the age of 52, and he sort of said, you should be thinking about it, looking towards your retirement, not thinking about setting up a business. And I just sort of said, watch me. And I haven't looked back, never looked back. And I have now worked with over 17,000 people.
Wow.
Since I set up on my own.
Wow,
So
it's impressive. Wow, it's amazing. And that's a very interesting point when you mentioned that you've been there working as in a manager position and you put yourself to being redundant. Probably you were receiving a good salary as a manager in a company, and your husband was thinking like, yeah, you should be thinking about your pension future, not set up a business. But I am assuming there'll be more people like you. You said you've been 52, and they are thinking like, I don't know if I want to do it for the next 13 years, let's say, before I can go to pension or whatever the age is now. But they are feeling scared because they feel like, but I'm so close, I shouldn't maybe start something new. Would you have some advice or tip to someone who's feeling that way, and maybe, how did you kind of jump into it, even it's a lot of people would put you off?
do you know, no, I had a lot of encouragement from friends and family, if this is what you want to do. And I mean, I'm not one of those people that tends to think of what is the worst case scenario. But, I thought to myself, actually, if all else fails, I just go and get another job. It's not actually a big deal breaker. But very, very quickly, I had to serve 3 months notice before I left. And in those 3 months, I was starting to contact people and organizations where I had contacts with a view to, can I come and talk to you about what I'm looking to offer, and whether you feel it would be of benefit or interest in the future. And so when I left, I went away on holiday, and I left the organization, had a week away on holiday, and came back and literally started going in to meetings that I'd lined up beforehand. It's a lot of it is about your own mindset, and going for what you want. And I think I wouldn't like to think 20 years ahead, I'd be sitting in my armchair, thinking I wished I had done that. I'm glad I've tried it, because actually if it didn't work, then at least I knew I had given it a go. But I don't want to live into my ripe old age thinking, oh gosh, the one regret I have is never actually having tried it. So my advice to anyone who's thinking of doing anything like this is actually give it a go. You just never know where it might take you.
Yeah, absolutely. Like I was reading some book recently or heard someone saying that, which lots of people know, but they were asking some people, they were older, they are, I think, yeah, there was somebody who was doing the hospice. So she was dealing with people who are about to die in the near future. And she was asking them, interviewing them, everybody, like, what is it you would change in your life? Is there any regrets you have? And nobody said like anything regarding material things or anything like that. It was always about things they didn't do than things they
Yeah.
did or they have. They didn't say anything about having a car or having a house. It was all about the experiences and things they didn't do. And I think it's very powerful. If someone is not having that support around them, and let's say they want to start, they know that this is they want to do, they feel like, I enjoy it, like you found out in your job, but all the people around them is telling them don't do it, and they are kind of scared to do it because everybody else tell them it's a stupid idea. What would you do then?
Actually, be a little bit more curious. If I had somebody saying to me, oh, I'm not so sure you should be doing that, I'd be sort of saying, well, why? What's
Mhm.
led you to think that? Because actually, I quite often find where people are saying that, it's more about their lack of self-belief, not their lack
Mm.
of belief in you.
Mm.
When I think of what my husband said to me, it was, I don't think he would do it, but
Mm.
and that was almost being deflected on me. So yeah, I'd be a little bit more curious as to, well, what's led you to say that? Why is it you think I wouldn't be successful?
Mm.
Because a lot of the time it's down to other people's lack of knowledge, lack of self-belief.
Mm.
And as I say, what's the worst that can happen?
Mm.
You give it a go, and then you end up having to perhaps apply for another job
Mm.
somewhere
Yeah.
else.
Yeah. Yeah,
So,
absolutely. Yeah.
but
Thank you.
I think making that choice to follow a dream and to really fulfill your purpose is absolutely massive. And I think for me, people perhaps should maybe be a little more encouraging rather than
Mm.
discouraging, and get you to kind of sit back
Mm.
and think twice about it.
Mm. Yeah, absolutely. So the message is be curious. Yeah, I definitely
Mm,
agree with that because I can see like I started different businesses as well. And when I was starting, they would try to discourage me, some of the people. And I would be the same, like, yeah, but why you are telling me not to start a property business when you never did it? But he
yeah,
knows someone from news or I don't know, property is failing, you're not going to make money in property, but he never done it. And so I think it's very important to watch from the advice from who is it coming, and if it's coming from someone who is not achieved that or is not doing anything similar, it's not even how to say advice, it's just discouragement. Yeah.
yeah, yeah. And
And
sometimes it could even
yeah.
be tinged with a little bit of jealousy. You
Oh,
never
yes.
know.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny, I think, because sometimes you feel like you have friends or family and they want you to do well, but they don't want you to do too well. They they kind of like encourage you, but on the other
Yeah,
side is like they are asking you every second week, like, so have you signed up this new client? Do you have more properties now? Or is that happened? And they kind of you can feel when they are asking you that
yeah,
they don't mean it. They just want you to stay the same or they don't want you to grow as much, which is
yeah.
shame. I sometimes see. Yeah. Yeah. Could you tell us a little bit more about what is NLP, Master Coach? Because I know it because I'm studying it, but when I didn't know it maybe 4 years ago. So could you tell us a little bit more about that?
Yeah. So um, the NLP stands for Neuro Linguistic Programming. So
Mm.
neuro is the brain, linguistic is the language we use, and the programming is how our brain kind of programs itself. And it's our language is just so powerful. Where when I'm working with people, you use open questions, and it really gets them thinking. You're kind of opening up the opportunity to give them the space. And one thing I've learned as a coach is be comfortable with silence. Sometimes you drop a question out there and you just have to be prepared to sit quietly and just wait for them to come up with the answer, because they'll be thinking quite deeply about it. So along with that qualification of being a master coach, I am qualified in the timeline technique and also hypnosis. And again, hypnosis is a language tool. It's just suggestive language, and you're working with the subconscious mind to just very subtly make changes that the person wants. So yeah. And I mean, I think NLP has had a period of time where it had a bit of a poor reputation, but it seems to be coming back into its own. I know a lot of people who are trained in it now and still continue to train in it. And as I say, as a linguistic tool, it's incredibly powerful.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. What language we speak to ourselves is really affecting our well-being, or what we do with that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I always say to my clients, you know, even when we're thinking, we're still speaking to ourselves. And most of the time, we wouldn't speak to our best friend or any of our friends the way we speak to ourselves. So perhaps we need to treat ourselves more as being our own best friend, to be kinder.
Absolutely, yeah. I see it very often in the industry where I am, in the property world, and I had that belief as well when I wanted to start the property business, and people would say, "Yeah, but I don't have the money to start, and I don't have money, and I don't have money. I cannot do it. I don't have the means to do it." And they are just saying it all the time, all the time. So of course you're not gonna start because you don't have the money. But if you just change the questions, how you speak to yourself, like, how can I start? How can I get that money to buy the first investment property, or how can I do it? So the brain starts opening, searching for those answers. But if you say I can't, it just shuts down because you said it.
Yeah. Yes, it just sort of almost gets rid of any possibilities.
Yeah.
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 Where
It's very interesting how.
I like the
Yeah.
phrasing of what if.
What if?
What
Yeah.
if I was able to achieve this, and what if I could meet my purpose? And again, it just opens up hope and possibility. And you're not saying you are, you know, I'm doing it. It's just, what if you're teasing out the idea, which again is quite a gentle way when working with people, just a gentle way of nudging them along sometimes.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I also like this uh, when we start opening the questions, the possibilities, like how can I do that, or what, how can I get there? And it's a certain topic. I found myself very often. There is this, I don't know exactly how to pronounce it, but the RIS, reticular
Yeah.
activating system, something like that. And you hear things, right? And sometimes I'm somewhere there on public space, there are people, and they are chatting about something. I don't really get what they are chatting about, but suddenly they say something about property, rent, I don't know, sale, something with that. I'm like,
And it's,
and you can hear it from far away. You wouldn't
yeah,
hear any other conversation, but suddenly, like, oh, what did you say? And after you can start a conversation with them so easily because they speak about it. And this is the brain searches for those answers for you,
yeah,
what you want to achieve. So it is
yeah,
very, very powerful to ask the right questions, I think. Yeah.
yeah. That's the reticular activating system.
Reticular activating system.
Yeah, yeah.
So it's difficult to
I
say.
shorten it. I sometimes call it our RAS.
Ah, RAS. Okay, that's good.
That's a
Yeah,
lot easier.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, it is,
absolutely.
but it's incredibly powerful. And equally, you know, if that works with ourselves as well, you know, if we say to ourselves, I'm not very confident, your reticular activating system, I explain it to my clients. I sort of say it's a bit like our own Google search engine. So if you say to yourself, I'm not very confident, your Google search engine will just find, every situation imaginable to reinforce the fact that you think you're not confident. And it doesn't serve us. But again, sometimes if we do the what if I can grow in confidence, we've reframed it a little bit. We're not saying I am, we're not there yet, but what if I can grow in confidence? Again, that reticular activating system might just sort of say, yeah, well, you cracked that meeting, didn't you? And, there's just little things that starts to highlight to us, and we start to then feel, yeah, you know what, I'm growing in confidence. I feel really great. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
amazing. And question, how did you pull it off, help 17,000 people? That's so many.
Oh, oh gosh, where do I begin? So when I first set up on my own, I was very fortunate. I'd had 3 or 4 years experience of doing this in the company that I worked in. So I already knew the results I could get. I now work with, I do a lot of work in the education sector and the military. I've trained in another modality since leaving that company. And this technique really does address things like trauma. So working with the military and veterans has been one of my passions. As I say, I do a lot of work in the education sector. What I've found is, so just to kind of share with you, on average, when I'm working with somebody, I do work in 2-hour appointment slots. So people kind of say, 2 hours? But then when they're working with you, they're really surprised how fast that 2 hours can go. And so 2-hour appointment slots, but I'll only see clients probably for about 3 appointments. Very rarely do I see people more than that. So they're quite surprised at how fast that change takes place, how quickly the trauma or the anxiety or the depression reduces, if not literally disappears. So and what I've found is that people just go away and talk about it, because if they've been for other therapies before and perhaps they haven't been as successful or haven't worked, then they are going to sort of say, well, I went to see this lady and, this was my experience. And I find I get a lot of referrals. People will contact me with a view to, oh, you worked with my friend and, she was telling me all about this. Is there any work you can do with me? Sometimes I work with teenagers. That's not an area that I particularly market, but I have worked with teenagers, and I think teenagers now seem to be struggling more and more. And I'm also pleased to say I seem to be working with more men as well. And we know that men's mental health there's been a lot of work done to try and raise its profile, because the suicide rate within men seems to be quite high. And I think there's this old way, coming up through the generations, you just put on a brave face, just, get on with it kind of thing. But if there is stuff going on in your life that is causing you to not feel great about yourself, it does need addressing. And as I say, I've seen the male clientele coming through increasing, which is good to see that guys are starting to realize, actually, I need to ask for help, and it's okay to ask for help. So yeah, and I think the other thing as well is when I'm doing training, I do a lot of inset days and twilight sessions in schools, And again, that's all about making sure. So that's not working with people who have mental health problems, but it's a bit like our physical health. Our physical health can be great one week, and I've done something to my back another week. And our mental health is exactly the same. It can be a bit like a roller coaster. So I think when I'm doing the training, it's about giving people those tools that, when they're on that dip, what is it you can do for yourself to help you get back up again? So, and as I say, I think the training with the wider audiences has also benefited a lot.
Okay, thank you very much for sharing. Would you have perhaps one of these tools you would want to share if somebody's watching and feeling down and not sure what to do, if there's anything they can just do right now?
Well, interestingly, the one technique I haven't talked to you about is havening. Havening techniques is a psychosensory therapy, which is based on touch. And we can literally apply the touch to our face. So it's a bit like washing your face. And interestingly, when you think about when people get stressed, they tend to go, oh, and and they put their hands in their face. We can also stroke our arms, okay? Now, what the hell is that doing? And when we do that, we're producing delta brain waves. And we know that these brain waves are very calming and soothing. So if anyone's feeling anxious about something or stressed, just literally taking a few moments out, maybe just closing your eyes. Quite often when I do it, or when I get my husband doing it, I'll sort of say, think about a place that you enjoy being. And my husband likes to go off to a beach. So he closes his eyes, he imagines he's on the beach. And then I suggest bring all your senses in. So as you're on that beach, what is it you can hear? So you can maybe hear the sound of the crashing waves. Maybe you can hear the seagulls. Perhaps, depending on what time of the day you're on the beach, you might hear children laughing, or it could just be nice and peaceful and quiet. What is it you can feel? So you can perhaps feel the breeze of the sea air, perhaps a bit of sunshine. You might feel the sun on your head and shoulders. And then how are you feeling? How does it make you feel? And as I say, all the time you're doing this, as you're thinking about that lovely place you're at, doesn't have to be a beach. It's obviously personal to the individual. You're producing those delta brain waves, and you're starting to feel calmer and calmer. And even if, my mother-in-law was taken into hospital on Sunday and quite distressed, and I was doing havening on her, and all I said was, you're okay. So I was applying, I was stroking her arms, and I just kept saying, you're okay, you're all right, you're fine. So it was just reassuring words. And eventually she sort of calmed down a little bit, gently, moment by moment. So it's a great technique as well for anyone who has problems sleeping, because again, we only tend to generate delta waves when we're asleep. So why wouldn't we try and use it to help us sleep better?
Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing. I have seen it before, but I've never had such a great explanation about the delta waves. So it was very good to hear. And I love those interviews because I always learning so much from everyone. So it's great. And I have another question. Maybe I'm not sure if it applies to you or not, because I know when you said you started, you had this experience already in that company. But have you had a time in your business since you started that there was something which was difficult? Maybe you didn't have enough clients, money wasn't coming, or you didn't feel like doing it anymore. Some part of that time in your time of doing it, which felt like it's kind of difficult.
Well, interestingly, you asked that question because this is about a personal journey of mine. So back in 2020, so I'd been running my business for 4 years then,
Mm-hmm.
and it's always seems to be going in the direction I want it to. So I've never had concerns about the business. But I lost my mum in 2020, and then a few months later, I got confused. So I was also taken off the contraceptive pill because I'd hit a certain age, and I got confused about how I was feeling. Unbeknowingly to me, because I'd been taken off the pill, it was almost like I was going through the menopause again.
Mm-hmm.
And although I was sort of feeling quite weepy and sad, I put it down due to the loss of my mum. So that journey has certainly, probably a few months experimenting with medication. I was going to say probably 6 to 8 months. There were times when I just thought, I'm not sure I really want to do this anymore. I don't feel like, but some of what I was feeling, which was almost a form of depression, was something that clearly some of my clients experience. And I've had a very, very fortunate life, and that up until that point, I can't honestly say I would have ever experienced anything like it.
Mm-hmm.
So having gone through that, if anything, it's made me more determined to help people because and funny enough, I used the havening a lot on myself going through that time. And but there were certainly days where I got up and I just thought, I don't know if I really want to do this, or I can't be bothered.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it was the fact that I still make a difference to people's lives that kept me going. So I have a lot to be grateful for to my clients, because if I hadn't got my clients and I hadn't got people booked in, it would have been very easy to have given up.
Yeah.
But I've kept going. I came out the other side, and I'm so glad I have. And now it's interesting when I'm working with, certainly with women of a certain age, and they're talking about the menopause. Again, that's
Mm-hmm.
something I can relate to and help
Mm-hmm.
them with.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah.
So so
Yeah.
yeah, so
Thank you.
I have a lot to, I'm very grateful for my clients, because as I say, it's maybe the distraction that I've needed to get through it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah. Thank you very much for sharing, because I think like everyone who is doing anything really, it's having like ups and downs. It can be in a
Yeah,
business, it can be in a personal, on their personal journey. And I'm asking just those questions because sometimes we just see on online and social media that everything is nice and
yeah,
everybody's doing well. But I think it's very important to share also the downside so people know it is okay, and if they
mm,
experience it as well, it is normal. And I experienced it multiple times in my past with my businesses, feeling like closing it down, moving to a different country, and I don't know what, like totally just change some things. But like you said, like because you overcome it and you went through it, it made you even stronger and more, even you can understand those people even more because you went
yeah.
through period of life like that. Okay.
Mm.
Thank you very much for opening it up and sharing. That's
No, you're
great.
welcome. You're welcome.
And okay, I think we are slowly wrapping it up. Let me see. Yes. I'll ask you two more questions. So
Okay.
one is there any vision on your side where you see yourself or your business growing, something bigger what you would want to accomplish with what you do?
So one of the things that I've trained in last year was the disc profiling.
Mm-hmm.
And this year, I've trained in the 5 behaviors of a cohesive team, which fits quite nicely with DISC.
Mm-hmm.
And I did have to do some soul searching before I did this training, because I sort of thought, well, how does this sit with mental health? But
Mm.
for me, it's all about, okay, we're in the workplace, we work in teams, and sometimes the conversations, we can walk away from a conversation. And I wish I had been disc trained years ago. I walked away from a conversation thinking, was I speaking a foreign language? Because I just don't think they got me. Or,
Mhm.
you know,
Yeah.
we feel that frustration, that they haven't been understood, or I haven't expressed
Mm.
myself in a coherent way. And
Mm.
those situations cause us stress. They can
Mm.
cause us to feel as though we don't like that person. You know, all sorts of things can start to ruminate and grow because of
Yeah.
poor quality discussions. So what that's enabled me to do is start to work with some of the companies and the schools that I already work with. I've managed to roll out the disc training. And what I've done now is put a package together, and which I've run a few times, but I'm really hoping that it's going to grow and develop. And it's about developing a coaching leadership style. So it's not about having a coaching qualification,
Mhm.
but with DISC, so we understand more about ourselves, we start to learn how to read other people and how to adapt ourselves to how they communicate, but blend that with developing a coaching style as well, then actually we start to unlock potential in other people.
Mhm.
And when I think, you know, nowadays time is of the essence when we're in the workplace, and, you know, when I'm having conversations with my husband, I hear about, you know, well, I didn't have time to do that. I was in such a rush. And
Mm.
so we know that, you know, and I think a lot of the time we can go and have a conversation with someone and sort of say, well, this has happened. What shall I do? And your manager might give you the answer, and you go away and you carry out their instruction. But
Mm.
if something goes horribly wrong, we don't necessarily take the responsibility. We blame the manager because that's what they told us to do. And with developing a coaching style, what we're starting to do is unlock the potential in our staff. Well, so again, we're using open questions. So if I wasn't here, how would you handle this situation? What is
Mhm.
it you would do? And you start to realize that you've got some staff who've got amazing ideas that you probably never even thought about. So
Yeah.
not only you're empowering them, but you're building better relationships, and you're cutting out all that stress
Mm.
that can come about in the workplace. And as I
Yeah.
say, unlocking people's potential.
Mm. Yeah. Absolutely. Yeah. It's very, very great. Yeah. It's funny you mentioned the disc because just recently we've done the disc with our staff, with our company. We have like a business coach from Tony Robbins, and he was doing it with us and done the training for this, so we can communicate better in our company and between each other. And I think it's very powerful because when you see where people are and when you can understand them, because
Yeah.
myself, I'm very direct and I just tell people, things. I don't go around the bush. But some people they feel like, it's sometimes offensive or I'm like too harsh. But the thing is, this is just how I am. But some people they
Yeah.
just talk more about it. And for me, it's like, okay, come on, get to the point. So everyone is different. And it's when we understand that I'm like that, they are like them. So nobody gets offended and we are good because people we know who we are.
Yeah.
So it is very, very powerful. Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
Well,
great. You are doing it.
the five behaviors of a cohesive team takes DISC to a completely
Mm,
different level, and that's quite powerful as well.
mm,
So I'm just going to start rolling that out soon.
mm. Okay, amazing. Thank you very much for sharing that. And last question before we finish, I'd like to ask you, you already shared with us so much, obviously also the tips and the healing,
Havening.
havening, um, word I've never heard, havening, I don't even know how to spell it. And Is there anything which, let's say, somebody is watching or listening, and they are struggling on any level of their life, whatever they are going through, business, life, and is there any tip, some some business breakthrough or anything you could share which can help them in any way? I don't know if maybe they feel down and they want to, say something or start something new or just not sure where they are in their life. Is there anything
Mm.
some tip which you would tell to someone who's feeling like that?
Well, I mean, the first thing I would say is reach out,
Mm,
without a shadow of a doubt. And the way I work in particular is I offer a free consultation, and that can be on virtual or in person.
mhm,
And that's with a view to understanding more about what's going on for that person, and
mhm,
then giving me the opportunity to share with them about how I work.
mhm,
Because I, we know coaches have coaches, and having someone that you can connect with, have that rapport with, is absolutely important. And that's why I don't charge for that consultation, because
yes.
that person might walk away and think, oh, that Helen woman. Um, Other people might think, yeah, I get this. I really want to
Yeah.
work with you. I connect with you. Um, so absolutely, reach out to people and share. And as I say, I certainly do offer a free consultation, and it's no obligation whatsoever to work with me.
Mhm. Perfect. Thank you very much for sharing that. And would you be up for it that I can put the link for that consultation in the description so somebody can reach out to you if they kind of lean to you, so that'll be beneficial for them?
Yeah, please feel free
Okay,
to share phone number and email address with pleasure.
perfect. Thank you very much, Helen. It was so lovely having you today. I learned so much, and I'm sure also the listeners they did too.
Okay, thank you. Thank you to you, Vincent.